What's up, everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Bill from Hollow Models RC. Right now I've got my SuperFlyingMan opened up in MeshMixer, and I'm going to show you how to add your head from one simple picture or any head that you want to my SuperFlyingMan neck file. So you can have an RC superhero of yourself or whatever character you want by adding your own head to my neck. So this is actually an old save file. This is what one of the logos on his chest looks like, more of an octagonal. There is also another logo that's got like a round bottom, as you can see there. There's also separate downloads for other logos that are available on Colts3D.com. You'll see the steel symbol, and you can also find the Reeves symbol along with their heads. So right now, let me open up my other save. So I'm working on getting Josh Bixler as a head also. I'm going to show you how to add from one picture of yourself through Maker World, how to add a 3D model onto my SuperFlyingMan. So let me open up my other file here, my MeshMixer. So if you go on Colts3D.com, you can download this save file. So I'm going to go ahead and open this save file up. It's through MeshMixer of my SuperFlyingMan. I'm on my laptop right now. It's a little sluggish. So I'm going to go ahead and upsize that. If the objects browser is not open, a lot of times I open MeshMixer up and it's not open. I'll go to View, Show Objects Browser. You want to make sure that's open so we can see what we're doing. So I'm going to go over some of the parts that I've got over here. When I just opened it, you can see I've got the basic SuperFlyingMan, and there's two different cape sizes. The model comes with 3 size capes. I've got the oversized and the scale that were open, so I'm going to close everything and go down the list here. This will all be in the save file. This is the actual save file that will be available to you, except there will be an additional 2 heads on it. So right now there's the punk hair that I sculpted for use. You can put that onto your head or one of the heads that are already here. I already have it on one head. I have a centerline reference, and we'll get to that later. So head 1, that's just him with no eyebrows, just a random guy, random head, no hair, no eyebrows, no nothing. The next one's actually got brows, it's the same head. Next one's got brows and hair, same head. And then you got the cartoon head. And then head number 2 is a little different, completely bald. And then I got him bald with punk hair. So next is the scale size cape. That's actually the cape from Hollow Models RC SuperFlyingMan. That's what we're working with today. That's the scale sized. And then there's also a cape oversized. I put these in here for a reference so you can kind of see what he looks like if you're working with your own head. And then I've got my SuperFlyingMan whole, but he's extremely low poly. I couldn't give away the entire thing for free. So that's basically what SuperFlyingMan looks like. He's extremely low poly right there. And that's also for a reference. And then last but not least is the actual neck file, which is what we'll be working with today. It does have a place in the bottom for magnets and the 2 pins. So when we add the neck, or the head rather, to this, we're going to have to make sure not to mess any of that up, or we got to cut it in a certain spot so that when we fuse the 2 pieces together, that it doesn't mess any of that up. And that's the important part and what I wanted to show you guys today. So I went on Thingiverse and I was looking. I just searched up busts, and I'm gonna put a head on there from Thingiverse. I'm gonna go ahead and import it now. File, import, and I'm gonna go to the Night King bust. That's what I got from Thingiverse. I thought it was kind of cool looking. This is the guy from Game of Thrones. So I imported him, and there is his bust there. So you can see the eyeball there, that's the Snow King. That's what I just imported, and everything else is closed. So I want to be able to see what the scale of my actual model. So I'm going to open some things up here. I'm going to open a couple heads up so that I know where the head is at on my model and how big he is. So I'm going to open a couple of them up just because. And I'll get a kind of general shape of, you know, where this guy's head needs to be in relation to my model. So I'm just going to open them all. And then I'm going to make sure the Snow King is highlighted. I don't want one of these highlighted. I want the Snow King highlighted. And I'm going to transform this guy. I'm going to transform the Snow King. I need to move him over to where I'm at, where my heads are at, and my working environment. So I'm going to hit T for transform. I'm going to hit world. And this is snap, and this is absolute. I'm going to turn snap off. Absolute, we can leave that on or off, doesn't matter. But I always navigate with the world coordinates. So you're not moving it with the local coordinate system of that part. You're moving it in the world coordinates. So right now, the first thing I guess I'm going to scale them up and kind of move them into position. So let's move them 90 degrees. So now when you rotate this guy, you can put him at any angle you want within decimal places. But if I go inside the circle, it'll snap to every 5 degrees. So I'm going to rotate him 90 degrees. And I'm going to move him over close to where we're at. And I'll go to my side view here. And I do the same thing. I'm just going to put his head straight up right now. Let's go 90 degrees. $45. So this is why I have all the heads there, so I know to kind of stay within them bounds. Move down a little bit. And now I'm going to scale them up, and I'm going to scale them up by this center white square, which is going to scale him up in every direction. And I'm going to kind of get them just as close as I can to those heads that I already have there. And try to keep the size as proportional as possible for right now. I don't want to spend too much time on this guy, but now the heads that I have, I made them print without support, and that's a little bit more of an advanced technique, but for right now I'm just going to show you how to put a head on this guy and to get him to print on your printer, so you can make whoever you want. And it looks like he's going to have to get scaled a long ways, a little more, top to bottom. Alright, so I kind of got them about the size that I want them. Bring them down a little more. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hide all those heads. And so I got just the Snow King, got him clicked on. Now I'm going to get my SuperFlyingMan low poly. And now, you know what, I'm going to look at the neck only and see what his head's going to look like. Actually, that kind of worked out really well, to be honest with you. Well, we obviously want the head to sit right on the lip of his shirt there. I mean, it kind of needs to be scaled up a little bit, but let's see what it looks like if I bring SuperFlyingMan in low poly. And I'll bring the cape scale size in. So this is all at your discretion, obviously. I'm going to scale them up a little bit. You also have to remember that the body's not completely 100% proportional either. I had to do certain things to it to get it to fly correctly and balance correctly and look right. So it's not 100% proportional either. I'm going to go ahead and transform him a little bit bigger. Hit C for transform. Got the world coordinates. Just kind of get his head size about where I want. So I don't like how his head is sticking up so much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put him flat again. And I'm going to scale this way only. But see, it disappeared on my coordinate system. There should be a square there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. I'll click back on the Snow King, hit T for transform again, and it popped back up. There you can see my green box. So I'm going to go ahead and scale a little bit this way. Make them a little smaller in that direction. Now we want him to print from over here going up, obviously. So that's why I brought my other head in to kind of see what angle his face is at. That doesn't look bad, actually. You can play with this a lot more. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on it. The only issue I really see is when he's printing the back of his head right there. That'll have to be a real low layer height. Other than that, I don't see too much of an issue with it. So I'm gonna cut the majority of his head off here, just to get rid of this big bust that I'm working with. So I've got Snow King selected, and I hit the selection brush, and I want to draw a straight line, so I'm not going to draw with this big cursor here. I'm going to turn that down, but I'm going to start from outside of him, hit select, and I'm going to draw a line just to get rid of most of this bust that I'm working with. Edit, erase, and fill. I don't want to just discard it because it'll leave a big hole that I'd have to fill, so I want to keep him a solid, so I'm going to go ahead and hit erase and fill. And then depending on how many polys you're working with, this guy was 620,000 polygons, and so I mean he's kind of up there, so it might take a minute. So it's producing an error. That's why you see all that weird redness there. Think about how I want to go about this. I'm go ahead and hit cancel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down. I've got my 45-degree angle, clear selection. I'm going to make a copy of him just in case I mess him up. And I do that a lot when I work in MeshMixer. And get rid of one of the copies so I can't see it, so I'm only working with the one. See? And then I'm going to go ahead and hit select again. And I'm going to select him differently. What I'm going to do is select his head. And I want to make sure I go past this line right here, like significantly past it. I'm going to come down here. So I don't want to erase and fill his head, so I have to invert my selection. I'm trying to remember how to do that. Modify, invert. That'll select everything else except that I had selected. Now let's try erase and fill again and see if we get an error. So I am still getting an error. And what I'm guessing is all those are separate. I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. I won't be surprised if MeshMixer crashes. Well, maybe I should have went about this differently. Since I have him saved, what I'm going to do, make another copy of that original one. Whoops, I think I made two. Trash. I'm going to turn them into a solid, and since each one of those little squares was probably a different STL, or a different polygon, I'm going to completely get rid of that, turn the entire thing into a solid, and make him just one solid body. So now you can go as high on this as you want, depending on what your computer will handle. He's probably going to be about 800,000 polygons. Where are we at now? 275. That's not too bad. We need to go up higher than that. And these values will actually go. You can actually go higher than this. I can go to 600 if I want, or whatever. For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to go to 512. And I don't want to go with this too high. I'm going to get a sharp edge preserve is what I'm going to do. I found that seems to keep the eyes and stuff a little bit more intact in his lip line. So 590, that's a little bit better. I think one of the heads I have is about 1,000,000 polygons. It doesn't matter, it's however many your computer can handle. Alright, so 30 seconds later, he finally got done. You can see it's running a little sluggish. And that's just until I hit OK. So I'm going to go ahead and hit accept with that. He's at 620,000 polygons, but that's with his chest too. Now, the head is only about 6 inches big, so we don't really need a super lot of detail in it. It'll be just fine. Okay, so now I got the new one. That's a solid, and it'll just be one mesh now instead of a bunch of intersecting meshes. And that might fix a lot of different problems just for some of you guys out there that don't know how to do something like that. So I'm going to work with the solid. I'm going to go ahead and hit copy again just in case I don't mess it up. Get rid of the one so you can see. Make sure whatever you have clicked on in MeshMixer is going to pop up to see it. So I got my copy of my Snow King solid. Actually, I don't think that's correct. You have to have this eyeball selected in order to make a copy of it. So go ahead and hit copy of the solid one is what I was trying to do. There we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and try to delete his chest again and see if it works this time without producing an error that I have to mess with. So now I'll try to erase and fill that. See if it pops up with all those errors. Okay, so it did work that time. And you can adjust this bulge and all, but we don't need to. We're just going to wind up throwing that entire section out. So I'm going to hit accept on that. Alright, so now we got the Snow King, just his head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of him just so in case I mess it up. And I'm going to delete the other ones that I had. Starting there, going up, I held in shift, select all, and delete. So now I just got my copy and my backup of my Snow King head. It's kind of looking, I think I might want to bring the top of his head in a little bit. So what I'm going to do to the back of his head, see what it looks like. I hit select. And when you soft transform, a lot of the time, the smaller amount that you have selected, the better it'll look in the long run. He's got those weird horns there. So I'm going to deform, soft transform, world coordinates, and I'm going to crank this up. How much of it I want it to go in when I'm moving my selection. And do that one more time. I'll move the back of his head now. World coordinate. And then depending on how many polys you're working with your model, this can get very sluggish when you do this. Or how good your computer is. And that'll help it print a little bit bigger. Plus it kind of looked a little weird sticking up like that as much as it was. I may want to just move his entire head in. Alright, so now let's look at the scale of his head compared to the rest of my guys here. Which his head is a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust him. Hit T for transform. I'll make sure I have just him selected. Kind of moving back to where the other guys are. Hide all the rest of my guys. Now I can see him because it's selected on him. I need to select Snow King. Alright, so his neck is not lining up right. I'd like his neck to come out into the collar as much as I can, both for printing and aesthetic issue. So what I'm going to do is self-transform the bottom of his head there. World coordinates. Let's turn this up. I don't want to go too high when I self-transform this, just up to about his chin. I only want the mesh from just his neck to get bigger. And you can play with this and reselect different sizes or do whatever you need to do to make it look like you want it to. So I'm going to scale this up, basically, is what I'm going to do. And I have to come up higher. Might fall off. And I can scale them independently if I want also, which I'm actually going to do. I'm going to try to keep it as even as I can. If I have to, I will self-transform one side at a time, but his head is also not correctly aligned in the center. So you're just going to have to keep doing this until... I did not mean to move that. I'm going to undo that. Control Z. I'm going to go ahead and hit accept on that. I'm going to move his head over now. So select just him, T for transform. Now I can bring up my center line reference that I got over here. That's why I included it. And he seems to actually be aligned pretty close to the center there. It's just his neck that's off. So I should have transformed him over when I had it open. That's okay. We'll just do it again. So I'm going to go ahead and select his neck again. Make sure my Snow King I'm working on is selected down here. Hit my select button. Deform, self-transform again. World coordinates, and my scaled up. Turn my fall off back up. Try to go to the bottom of his chin there. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this. You guys can do this yourself with whatever head you want. And really make it look nice. So I can't really see through his arms there. So what I'm going to do is get rid of my low poly SuperFlyingMan. I'll keep just the neck file. And let's try to get his head fitted onto that neck a little bit better. I may want to move his head down forward. Actually, what I'm going to do is so I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. Well, it disappeared. Like any other CAD programming, they all have their weaknesses. So I'll just hit select again, clear selection. Make sure my guy's still highlighted. Get rid of my center line reference. So I'm going to try to fill his neck out into that shape of my SuperFlyingMan. So I just need to move that little area. So what I'm going to do is hit select and have a very small brush. And I'm just going to click one time. You're not going to be able to see it because it's going to be inside his neck there. But I am going to highlight one or two polygons. Deform, soft transform, world coordinates. Turn my fall off up. And this time I'm not going to scale. I'm just going to move it out a little bit. I have to do this a couple times to get it to look right. I could also sculpt this if I wanted. Which I'm going to wind up sculpting in a little bit probably. And I could have did this much better. I could have made his head a lot higher poly and look a lot nicer. Well, like I said, when you print it, you're not even going to be able to tell anyway. So let's move this side in a little bit. Now that, I think I'm going to sculpt that. So I'm going to go to my sculpt. So what I'm going to do is shrink smooth that area. If I go down here, click on refinement, make sure that refinement is off. What this refinement is it's refining your mesh either to a higher or a low poly. And I just want to keep it as many poly as it is right now in that area. So I'm going to make sure that's unclicked. I could probably turn the strength down or up. Just leave it kind of there. Turn this up a little bit. Just trying to get a clean neck spot right there. So when I cut his head off, it looks okay. So I'm going to go to my draw to, turn the strength down. And I'm going to hold in control, because if I just click on this guy, it's going to come out. So control Z, undo that, and I'm going to hold in control so it subtracts from that area. And I could probably do this all the way around and just make his head kind of fill out down there. Do the same thing down here, just control, just draw his head out, his neck. And subtract a little bit from right here, control, click. Just clean this area up right here. So when I go to cut it, it's not making a whole bunch of pieces, it's just cutting his head off. Turn the strength up. You gotta be careful when you do this, because you can turn the mesh inside out, creating errors. Like I said, this is just a quick tutorial on how to make a guy, or whatever head you want, fit onto my SuperFlyingMan. There's a lot of good tutorials out there on how to use MeshMixer. So control click, try to clean up the area right around my collar there. Alright, so now I'm going to look to see if I got any major print problems. Like I said, the heads that I designed, they're all designed to print without support. Now this guy is going to require support, as you can see, because his ear's not going to print correctly. But I could sculpt his ears or push his ears up forward some if I wanted to. However, I think his horns might print fine. So if we look at it in the print direction, yeah, his horns are going to be fine. The nose will print, the inside of the nose. The lips look okay, all the chin. Everything looks like it's going to print except for the ears. Let's see what my options are. So I could soft transform his ear a little bit to get his ear to print, but then it would make his ears look like an elf. Now what I do is I make another object. I'll make an object that'll go inside of his head, and it'll fill in behind his ear, and then I merge the two objects together. But I could also sculpt this. I could sculpt this and bring this out so that his ears will print correctly. Because there's too big of an overhang right there. My bubble smooth brush. Now the heads that I have, they're a much higher quality, as you can see. They're smooth. This is just a quick demonstration. You kind of got to get accustomed to MeshMixer. And sometimes I'll sit here for hours trying to make something look nice. So let's look at him from the print angle. That looks a little better. I'm trying to be able to rotate the position here, and it wouldn't do that with that brush open. So there's still an overhang there. So I didn't really want to take the time to fill in behind his ears. What I'll do is I will select a very small portion of his ear, and I will soft transform it just to get it to print without support, but it's going to require a very small layer height in order to get that to work correctly. So at least now it'll print without support. Unless you just want to print it with support too. I mean, or if you're trying to make your head and you want it to look really nice, or the head you're putting on might require support anyway. So it's all your personal preference. Yeah, this guy's head is so far from human anyway, it doesn't really matter that I adjusted his ears that much. It might even look better like that. Alright, so that's about all I'm going to really do to this head to get it to work for my SuperFlyingMan, and I will print him and add him at the end of the video. His neck is off-centered, but his head is not. Let me look at my center line again. It kind of looks like his entire head is tilted a little bit. So I'm going to transform him. I would have to rotate 2 directions at once. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn him 45 degrees. And then I'm going to correct his position. Might have went a little bit too much. Now I'm going to turn him back 45 degrees again to back where he was. Turn my center line off. Alright, so now the important part, which is actually cutting it off and getting it to fit on my model correctly. So I need to get this to disappear. I'll hit select. Alright, so I can get rid of this old snow guy that I got. I got just the one I've been working on. Make sure the eyeball is on there. Hit duplicate. Hide the original. And then the neck only for SuperFlyingMan. The eyeball is on there. I'm going to duplicate that also. And get rid of the original. Just hide it. So I got my 2. Now I'm going to get my neck. Actually, first I am going to highlight my Snow King. Make sure I'm looking from directly on the right side or the left side. And we got to cut the bottom off there so we can fuse it with my neck. When we do that, like I said, you got to be mindful of the spots where the magnets and the pin goes. So I got to cut his neck up high towards the collar. Bring my Snow King back. I've got my Snow King selected. And make sure I'm on the right or the left side. And then I'll hit my selection brush. And I'm just going to follow the center of his collar. Until I get to this point right here where you can't see his collar anymore. I'm going to click right in the center of that. And then I'm just going to go to this corner right there. Because his neck is up here. So I want to make sure I have a little bit to work with. Actually, it looks like he's got some hanging off there. So what I'm going to do, and when you zoom in and out in MeshMixer, obviously it changes where your line was. So let's just start over. Let's hit clear selection. And that's because there's some sticking out up there. There's a bunch of different ways to solve that. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete that section. I'm just going to selection brush. Erase and fill. Make sure it didn't go into his neck at all. It's fine. Hit accept. Go back to my right side. If you're holding control and if your right mouse button or the middle mouse button, you can zoom in and out a little bit easier like this instead of, because when you zoom in and out with your mid mouse wheel, you can go in increments so big. So get my selection brush. Alright, so I got Snow King highlighted. Right, his eyeball's on. Hit select. Nope, did that wrong. Try it again. Select. Follow my center line. There, now there's nothing popping out at the top right there. We'll go right to the corner. Edit, erase and fill. Now it's producing an error. Let's see if I can see why that is. It probably has something to do with that. Oh, wait. It's because of this area, I believe. Because it's going in and out the mesh. Alright, so let's just hit cancel that. Well, I can't cancel that because it's in the middle of a process and the process disappeared. So I'll hit select again, clear selection. So what I'm going to do is I've got my Snow King highlighted and I'm going to hit select or sculpt, brushes, shrink smooth. I can crank this up. And I'm going to get rid of those areas, smooth them out. Where's my neck going? I probably could have just cut it a little bit closer to the collar there. I was using the wrong brush. So I'm just going to shrink smooth that spot. As long as I didn't go past my collar where I'm trying to make my cut, it's fine. Alright, let's try that again. Alright, Snow King, I'm on the right side, select. I'm glad it's producing errors, because nothing's ever easy, and I know if you guys are trying to add a head and you don't know how to use this program, at least a couple errors popped up that you'll be able to see how I mediated them. Right through the corner there. And like I said, I could have probably just come up here and cut it right there, and it would have been fine. Edit, erase, and fill. And that time it didn't produce an error. Alright, so the problem is, before I hit accept on this, that it's obviously protruding into the area where I said it can't protrude into. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this box and hit flat remeshed. We don't want flat minimal, we want flat remeshed. We don't need to touch anything else. Hit accept. And that should be it. That should make it work. So let's hit clear selection. Now I've got copies of these. It's not the original, right? I got my Snow King that I cut and my neck, which is a copy. They're both highlighted. I need to be able to see them both. I'll hit Snow King first, although it doesn't matter. And then my neck, I'm holding in control. I'm going to select both of them. Boolean union. Hopefully this produces an error so I can show you how to fix it. And I don't think it's gonna. I'm just gonna leave all these settings just where they're at. It's fine. Hit accept. And that seems to have worked. So let's test it. I've got the one that's fused together right now. And I'm gonna go to analysis and inspector. Oh, and it's got a whole bunch of errors. Which it shouldn't really have made an error like up here because we turned this thing into a solid. So it's kind of funny how that worked. So I can let it fix the errors by itself. However, I need to make sure it doesn't mess this bottom part up. So let's hit auto repair all and see what happens. I can't see where they're actually going to. Probably his neckline. I probably could have just exported the mesh into Prusa Slicer, and Prusa Slicer would have fixed it also, even with them errors in there. As long as it didn't mess up my neck area. This needs to all stay the same. So that obviously that it fits into the model. But all those errors were probably coming from this line that's in the neck. And one thing I could have done to do that, to fix that, is I could have went back to my guy and made him a little bit higher poly in that area alone, by hitting sculpt. And there's a couple ways to do it. I could have used a brush that says refine and enable refinement, and I literally could have just made him higher poly by sculpting. Now I know you can't see it there, but if I go to view, wireframe, it's higher poly right there. Control and Z, undo that, and that probably would have fixed the issue all the way around his neck, and it would have only had that one error up here. Now, if there's one error there around his neckline, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just undo the cut from the head or the fusion of the head and the neck, and I'll go back and just move the mesh a little bit in that area where the error was. And I'll do that by hitting like brush, bubble smooth, or shrink smooth, and just moving it a little bit, and then trying to cut the neck or fuse the neck and the head together again. And a lot of time that error will go away. And that's a very easy way to fix something. So if one of those errors pops up for you. But for right now, I don't believe that there's an error that's going to keep me from printing this guy and keep me from him fitting onto the model the way that I want him to. So I think we're good. I'll hit inspector again, see if anything else pops up. Analysis, inspector. And I don't see anything sticking out, so there's no errors. You would see one of those lines in one color or another. So that's it for Snow King. So now I guess we can do the other one, which is Josh. Get rid of my original Snow King. So I got him highlighted, and I will just file, export him as an STL, and I can print him. Alright, so I got my Snow King. He is completely done, and I'm going to export him and bring him into Prusa Slicer, and to make sure that there's not an error that I can't see, and make sure that he's going to print. Which his ear is the only questionable part, and like I said on my guys, if I show you what I do, if I look at one of them, you can see how I bulk the bottom of the ear up, just so that it starts printing by itself. And I did that on all of them, obviously, and it takes a little while to do that. It's all how much time you want to spend on this. You can see how I bulked it up so it'll print vertically, and I do that, like I said, by making either a copy of this head and sculpting it down, or like importing a ball, like you can mesh mix. I could mesh mix and add a ball into my world and scale it down, and then reposition it behind his ear and sculpt that ball. So that it'll fill in only what I want it to fill in, and then I will get the ball that's sculpted and his head, and I will join them together and either create a solid out of all of it, or just hit a Boolean union between the two. And that's how I made all these guys look nice, where it's just a little bit so that it prints vertically in this direction from right to left. Alright, so that being said, I'm going to delete my ball here, get rid of my cartoon head, bring the Snow King back up, and I'm going to rename him because I'm going to save this file and put it on cults3d.com. Snow King from video. Now I'm going to export him. Got my Snow King selected. Export STL, and then custom heads. Alright, I've got Prusa Slicer opened up now, and I'm going to import the guy that we just made. Import STL, Snow King from video, open them up, and he's got errors. But that's okay, because Prusa Slicer is a very powerful program, and it will fix those errors, and we'll be able to print this guy. As long as that bottom is not messed up, and the sides, he's going to fit right on the model with no issue whatsoever. So I'll just go ahead and let it repair. Alright, my errors are repaired. Stick them on the bed. You know, I always like to rotate them. Move them. Get centered. Alright. SuperFlyingMan. SuperFlyingMan. See what he looks like. Now, if you're going to print a custom head that you made yourself, I would recommend using one of the print settings from a 3MF file from another head that I provided. Open up another head and then go to here and hit replace, replace with STL, and you'll see how I was getting this section to print easily. And what I do is I print my heads with 2 walls, I think 4 tops and 2 bottoms, or 3 tops and 2 bottoms, I don't remember. And then this is a small layer height, and then not only that, but it prints 2 walls, but from the inside to the outside, and that helps this print easy. And then when it gets up to like his nose, for instance, I will from right here up, I will print from outside in so that it can work this area a little bit better. And that's the only 2 real problem parts I see. Although the nose, it'll print fine. It'll print just about everything fine, except you'll need a lower layer height right here, and then maybe possibly in the bottom half of his ear section. Now, I will get this guy to print correctly. I'm not going to do it in this video, and I will upload it with this file and this video, so this will all be available to you. And as you can see, you can't see the polys in him anywhere. I mean, his eyes have got holes in them or whatever, but you can fix all that or do whatever you want with your heads. I just wanted to show you how to put any head that you want onto my SuperFlyingMan neck. Alright, so that one's done. We are going to move on to a little bit more of an advanced technique. I'm going to show you how to take one picture of yourself or whoever and put them on the SuperFlyingMan, but I'm going to do it quickly just like I did this one. I'm not going to have it super high poly, not do a great job on it. I'm just going to make it work, and you can do the rest of the work. So I'm going to go back into MeshMixer. So I'm going to get set up here to do my other guy. There's my SuperFlyingMan. Let's bring my cape scale. And I got my neck only. Now, if you wanted to turn yourself into my SuperFlyingMan, you turn yourself into a superhero. And you can do it from just one picture. However, there's a lot of apps. There's a lot of good stuff available online. This is not really a tutorial on how to do that, but so much just as to put it on my SuperFlyingMan. The easiest way to do it is by taking one picture of yourself and going to makerworld.com and doing it that way. So if I go to my internet here, I've got Josh Bixler. I took one picture of him from a video. Well, first off, in order to get to this, you got to go to makerworld.com, and you're going to make a statue of yourself is what you want to do. And there's a lot of videos on how to do this, and a lot of other programs that do this for free. And there's a lot of apps for your phone that do this also. And the ones on your phone, there's some good ones that actually use it from a bunch of pictures instead of just one. So you've got your entire head instead of just a frontal, because a lot of time the AI doesn't correct the back of your head correctly when you do it like this. So I'm at makerworld.com, and you're going to go to Maker Lab. Click on Maker Lab. Well, first off, you have to make an account, because this uses tokens. However, the tokens are free. You can have an account with just one email. You can make it unlimited emails, do this however many times you want. So I'm going to go to make a statue, is what I'm going to do. And as you can see, I've tried this twice in the past, before I started making this video. That's Josh Bixler's head right there. So you'll make my statue, create from blank. You go in here, it tells you what to do, what not to do. Now the best way to do this for my SuperFlyingMan would be to keep your mouth closed and not have teeth, because it prints better that way, but do it however you want. Obviously put your just the bust in, not a close-up of your face, and it wants your front shot, not your side, blah blah blah. I know. And then you'll drop your picture in here, and then that's where you'll get this. And this will come up 2 to 3 minutes later, and as you can see, it does the front side just fine. And this is not what the STL is going to look like. This is just a preview. The STL is going to look a little bit better than this, and I will show you. But the side, I mean, he's got an egg head.
I have never sucked an egg in my life.
You know, so this is going to all have to be fixed. So it's what program you want to use and how much time you want to spend on this to make your head look nice. But this can be fixed. It can be stretched out in relationship to my other heads that I have. Or you could just cut the face off and literally put that on one of the heads that I've already got. So there's a lot of different ways to fix it. So you'll download this and you'll import the STL into MeshMixer. It'll be into this file, so I'll go to import that download, and I'm going to go up to Josh. So I've got the one where I had 2 pictures of him. I don't know if I showed you that. I did it twice, one from each of these pictures, both from videos, and one turned out a little funky, and the other one's actually workable. Actually, I did it 3 times, and the one time he had his mouth open, which is kind of funny, because both pictures he doesn't. Anyway. So I'll get the workable one. I'm going to import that into MeshMixer. And where's he at? Oh, there he is. So as you can tell, it looks nothing like what it looked like. So you can actually see his beard and all that. And in this, you can't. And this is the file that I downloaded. So it does look a little bit better than this, but you're still going to have to work it. So I got him in MeshMixer, so I'm going to select him, got the eyeball on, and I'm going to bring him over. No, he's got errors in him, but we can just turn him to a solid. So I'm going to correct him a little bit. I'm going to bring him over to my working area and get him ready to fuse to my SuperFlyingMan. So I'm going to transform him, put T, world coordinates. I am going to rotate his head. Let's bring my center line reference in. Let's try to move him 90 degrees at first. And you can tell his head is a little bit lopsided. So I'll start off just by moving him 45 and 90. Just bring his egghead down here. Scale his egghead up. It might just work just to scale this direction down. That would probably fix a lot of it. But at least his face looks like Josh. As you can see, it's not really centered there. You know, this was done from one picture, so it might not look the greatest, but it's pretty amazing. Like I said, it's however much time you want to spend on this. No, I don't like that. We're just going to leave it where it was. And then plus when you print it anyway, you don't need that many polygons. You're not going to see that much detail unless you're using like a 0.1 nozzle to print this guy. Which it would literally take 20 hours to print them that way. Alright, so I'll keep scaling them up. Scale them into position. Let's bring my other heads in, try to get his head somewhat correct to where the other heads are. And I know I'm going to move the back of his head down some, so I'm going to get his face and his neck kind of in the right position. And just for curiosity, I'm going to see what he looks like if I was to scale him down vertically right now. Scale that egg shape down some. So let's make a copy of that. Make it so I only can see one copy, and select on that copy. And I'm going to hit T for transform, world coordinates again, make sure that's highlighted, and I'm just going to scale this down. And that looks a lot better already. It's pretty funny. He's going to love it. So that's going to be an issue right there, printing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate his head a little bit more. Let's see what his head size looks like opposed to the body. His head looks a little too wide. How's it fit on the neck? It's too wide. Alright, so again, my little boxes to scale him down just on those planes disappeared. So I'm going to hit accept. I'll click on Josh again and hit T for transform, and my boxes appeared again. So I'm going to scale it in this way. I don't want to scale it too much. I'd rather scale just his neck. I want to make sure his head looks proportionate. Maybe I should bring the scale of the whole thing down a little bit. Yeah, I think I should do that. Let's see where these guys are at. They look... So Josh has got a small head already, or... Yeah, he's already got a small head. So... How small is it? Click on Josh again, hit T for transform, world coordinate. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate them. Accept. So clicked on T for transform, and I'm going to scale him down this way a little bit. Accept. T for transform, world coordinate, and put him back. Scale him back down. Try to get his head about the correct size of what it's supposed to be to fit on the model anyway. You can really have a lot of fun with this with different heads to put on these guys, and the fact that they're magnetic makes it all the more fun. His head is still egg-shaped up there. It's still big. So that's about centered where it should be. Let's see what that looks like. If I get rid of all these other heads. I got my low poly SuperFlyingMan and a cape. I'll bring a cape out. Cape scale. And click on Josh Bixler. So his head kind of looks still too wide. And it doesn't fit the neck correctly down here either. So we're going to fix that. T for transform, world coordinate, and I'm going to scale him in this way a little bit. How much? Where's my neck at? I'm going to hit cancel. I think it's just his neck that needs scaled down. Maybe I should start there. So let's cut his head off. I got Josh selected down here. I'm going to cut. He doesn't have much of a neck, which is kind of an issue. You know, when you do this, you want to make sure you have a lot of neck to be able to fuse onto this model. So let's just cut off everything we can. Looking for a good line to cut this so it doesn't produce a bunch of errors or make some weird kind of geometry when it tries to go fill it in. Edit, erase, and fill. And that's fine. I'm just going to go with that. Alright, so now let's try something different here. His head is just too wide. I don't know. Compared to him, it's about the same size. That's why I kept all these other heads in here. So it's just deceiving. His face is awfully wide. So let's kind of move it back to where the other guys are. Josh doesn't have that superhero chin down there, that big butt chin sticking out. I think I'm going to wind up having to sculpt a good amount of this. In order for it to fit correctly, I'm going to have to scale it down width-wise. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take another copy of this. Alright, so when I stretched his neck out, it also stretched out the polygons on the side. I don't want that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make that little higher polygon in that area. And I will do that by refining the mesh. I want the refinement on. And that seems okay right there. Just go with that all the way around this entire neck area so I can sculpt it. I plan on smoothing this area out, and that's why I'm making it a little higher poly there. And it wouldn't hurt to do that to his face either. Oh yeah, he's at 200,000 polygons. It's not crazy amount. Okay to go ahead and just make him a little higher poly throughout. Right, Josh? Alright, so he is now a little bit higher of a poly. And I'm going to fix his neck so it fits on my neck a little bit better for SuperFlyingMan. I'm going to first start off by self-transforming. So I'm going to hit select. Let's get like a small selection size. Number 6 is good. And kind of select right there. Self-transform. World coordinates. Crank this up a little bit. Right below his chin. and push it. What's local look like? I'm going to use local. We're just going to go one direction here. Except I'll do that to the other side too. Clear, select, right in the center there. Self-transform. Leaving local on. I'm going to try to pull the neck out and see if that helps instead of pulling the head. When you do this, you need to make sure you don't change anything on the very bottom there, or it's not going to line up with the model correctly. I would highly recommend not really changing the neck a whole lot, only to change the head and to sculpt the head to get the head to fit correctly. And make sure I didn't mess anything up on the bottom. Still good. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make his chin a little bit thinner. So underneath his chin is obviously a little funky. I'll go ahead and smooth that guy out there where I just changed it. So Josh is now going to be clean shaven. But that's good. I don't want to stray too far away from what he actually looks like. Bring this out just a little bit. Alright, so I got the head about to where I want it. As he would say, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut his head off and fuse his head to my SuperFlyingMan. Before I do that, I'm going to look to see what he looks like at this point, what he'll look like on my model. on SuperFlyingMan. I don't know if I should move his head back a little bit more. Maybe scale it a little bit more. Maybe I should rotate it and move it inward a little bit so you can't see as much of his neck. I think I'm going to do that a little bit. So I'm going to make another copy of him. See where my other guys were. Now his head is actually smaller than the rest of them. Now that AI generated head, it didn't do a bad job, but it did turn out to be a little bit more work than I expected. Like I said, I'm not going to go crazy. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I already spent more time than I wanted to. There is like 8 different heads that come with the model already. His head kind of looks a little small. Alright, so that's good enough. I'm going to go ahead and fuse them together. I'm going to go ahead and hide the rest of this stuff. And then this is the important part for the videos anyway. I just wanted to show you how to fuse a head to the neck that I have, that I supplied with the model. So make sure Josh is clicked on. I'm on the right side, right or left side. Get it to a good spot right there. And I'm going to go select. Just follow this coping from his shirt. And then right to the corner and cut all this off back here. Edit, erase and fill. I want flat fill, remeshed. Flat, remeshed, accept. Okay, let's look at it, make sure there's nothing crazy going on. It seems okay. So I'm going to make a copy of that just in case. Make sure I got my neck and the head highlighted. And then I'm going to hold in control, select both of them, Boolean union. Hopefully it produces an error, and it didn't again. So I'll go ahead and hit accept. Okay, there seems to be an error somewhere. And he does have some errors in these red spots are errors. So let's go to analysis and inspector. So now if I do nothing with that, let's see what's going on here first. As you can see, you can't even tell anything even happened there. When you click on one of those, it's going to fix them. And then, like I said before, you just have to make sure that the magnet area and the pin area is not messed up, and they've got straight lines that where he's going to sit in the SuperFlyingMan to make sure there's not an issue. And as long as there's no issues there, we're good. We can go ahead and export this guy. So now there's an additional 2 heads on top of the ones that I've already supplied. They're not as high poly, or I did a bit nicer of a job on the ones that I made. Now that's going to be an issue, I believe, again, printing his ear, that overhang. It's really going to struggle to print that ear. Let me see if I can fix it. Usually I like to do that before I fuse the head to the neck, but it's a little bit too late for that. Although I could go back, that's why I made a copy of it right here. Let me see if I can fix it a little bit, just enough so that it'll print, because it doesn't look like it's going to print to me without support anyway. I can come back and smooth that. Let's check the other side. I mean, this is so small anyway, like I said before. It's not a super big deal. And it looks low poly, but it's really not as bad as what you think. Bubble smooth brush to kind of fill it in a little bit. I didn't undo that. Turn the strength down a little bit. And size up. MeshMixer is a pretty powerful program. If you don't use it, I definitely recommend trying to learn how to use it. It's very good for certain things. So I'm happy with that. That looks good enough for me. I might wind up printing this guy out anyway. I am going to Flight Fest this year, 2025. Alright, so let's check him for errors now. Let's make sure we're clicked off of him. Click back on him. Analysis, inspector, nothing. Prusa Slicer actually works really nice for errors anyway. Better than MeshMixer, I would say. That's my personal opinion and how I use the program. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to delete everything that I'm not using or I'm not going to. Alright, and then I'm going to save it, and this file is going to get uploaded on Cults and available for download. I'm going to pull him into Prusa Slicer and see what he looks like when I slice him. And I'm actually going to print both these guys. Alright, so there's my Snow King. Let's get rid of him. Alright, so he didn't have any errors in him this time, so... Alright, so that's it, guys. I'm going to get both these guys, Josh and the Snow King, printed and finish editing my videos so I can upload my SuperFlyingMan to Cults. So if you're seeing this, it's already available. Thank you guys for tuning in to my channel and for watching, and subscribe if you liked the video. I am Bill from How Models RC, and I will talk at you next time.